Hello, Carnivore Hunters. This is Doug. I want to thank you guys for joining us for this live stream. We do have my brother's actually going to be a little bit late today. He actually ran into some issues with work, but hopefully he'll be joining us pretty soon. And we have Lee from Kent Carnivore. So welcome, Lee.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Man, I got to tell you, I love watching your videos. Your sense of humor really taps into me. And then there's been a couple of times where I end up realizing you've done a video that I've been planning, and I have to kind of scrap an idea because I'm just like, oh man, that's exactly what I was going to do. But
No, seriously, we need all the help we can get. I've just been on with someone else who's in the UK. He's got a similar channel, similar name. Never heard of me. He just found me by chance, invited me on. He's like, I haven't seen you for all these months that I've been doing my thing. You've been doing your thing. So it's crazy. It's worth us all getting the word out. And that's what I think we do. We sort of find all these lovely, miraculous results with carnivore, and then we're inspired to make a channel and just spread the word.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So what tell everybody how did you come to carnivore? I know you had some medical issues in the past, and what brought you to this lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying that I went carnivore to get rid of my depression, in hopes to get rid of my depression. But it really starts back when I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. So the history of my health, really, it started in 2012. I was diagnosed with UC, so it's an inflammatory bowel disease.
Hmm.
Uh, Basically, a little bit like diarrhea, but you got blood and mucus and pus. It's quite nasty, really. So I would go in and out of flares, and in the beginning, it was quite mild. Went a couple of years without medication, but it certainly got a bit worse. And that's when I went down to the doctors, and they then started to put me on different steroids and things like that. And this seemed to help in the beginning, where they're suppressing the symptoms, so you feel like you're managing a little bit better.
Hmm.
But the disease wasn't being addressed. It wasn't like addressing the root cause, like all medications. And so this stuff was just getting worse and worse, and just started to spread up all the way up my colon. And so by the time 2017 came along, the flares were just much, much worse. And the last time I flared before being hospitalized, I was going to the toilet 30 times a day, just relentless. It was crazy. I thought, I haven't got many days in me like this. And so ended up in hospital, and I didn't get out with my colon. They took my whole colon out. They were quite shocked themselves, because they'd done a sigmoid endoscopy. So that's basically camera and biopsies up the back
Hmm.
end. They do that. They come back and confirm, yep, you got this chronic disease, and that's how it was diagnosed. And it had been a few years since they had done anything like that, and they were quite shocked to see, it was low end, quite mild, and then it's just severe all the way up. And so they trialed me on an immune suppressant drug, more drugs, of course, and that also didn't work. It was like a 50-50 flip a coin. You're going to be on some serious medication for life and going in and out of remission. I can't see that I wouldn't have wound up having this surgery anyway if that didn't happen, but it didn't work. And so they just came in and told me, you're going to have your surgery in the morning. We're taking your entire colon out. So at the time, I was open, because I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was just poisoned, and nothing was fixing, even the
Hmm.
drugs. So I was kind of open. I was like, yep, you do what you need to do. But it wasn't until I got back to health in hospital, they were all happy that I could go home. I could wash and stand up and walk down the corridor, change my bag myself, and all this stuff. So for anyone who doesn't know, I obviously have a stoma now, which is the part of the digestive tract that I'm left with, at the very bottom of my digestive tract, if you like. That comes through my stomach, and then I fashion a bag over the top. So my number two basically empties into a bag.
Hmm.
And I've gone home with this, and now I'm not in the hospital. I don't feel sick anymore. And I'm kind of like, oh man, this really sucks. And literally the next day, because I was back with my parents at the time, and they all went to work the very next day. And almost instantly, I woke up, washed, went downstairs, and it was almost like depression just hit me. I wasn't happy, didn't like the way things felt and looked, and this kind of just manifested over time. We go in and out of depression, and it wasn't until the end, before finding carnivore, it was so bad. I was just so fed up. I was just really open for anything. Just I need help. I was very deep with dark thoughts, and I just reached out to the doctors again. I didn't think I could cope by myself, and I didn't really want to take medication. They gave me a number, and I ended up having an extensive conversation with this unit called We're With You, and we talked for 45 minutes, and it kind of felt pretty good, getting stuff off my chest to a complete stranger at first. And
Right.
the way they were going to refine how they were going to treat me, and what happened in the end is they never got back to me. I couldn't number back, because there was this crazy long number. It was really strange. You can't call these guys back. And a couple of weeks went by, and I thought, I don't know whether these they're going to get back to me. It's almost like they've lost me on the file or something, you know. Anyway, 2 months had gone by. I'd already accepted that perhaps they're not coming back. I'm on my own, and for whatever reason, I didn't get the ball rolling with them again. And I was just sitting on the couch and stumbled across an anecdote from Michaela Peterson, like many people do. Jordan Peterson is a very common one. I'd first heard of the diet from him, thinking it was crazy at the time. But when I heard,
Right.
when I heard her daughter, you know, take us through her journey and how it solved so many issues, all these chronic ailments, but her autoimmune disease and specifically depression, which you know inspired me. That got me. I was like, I'm open. I'm going to try this thing. I've got nothing to lose. And so the next day, I just jumped in on the BBBE. When you start watching all these videos, you get them coming up on the algorithm. So all these different videos were coming up, and thought, hey, that's an easy one to grasp. I'll try that. And so I went to the store and pretty much jumped in the very next day, and I've not looked back. It's crazy because this was just a 30-day challenge in hopes to ameliorate my depression symptoms and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I was giving up all carbohydrates, you know, bread and pasta, which I used to love, and fruit juice and all this stuff. I haven't had any of that since. And the reason why is because 3 weeks went by and my depression completely lifted. And it was a little bit slow at first. You know, the first 2 weeks I felt a little bit low energy because I wasn't used to getting just fats and proteins. And I certainly wasn't consuming enough fats because I was always used to just carbs, malt,
Right.
grains, grain-based meals all the time. Honestly, it was like cereal and wraps and bread, then pasta or rice. It was just always based around grains. And so my body never had a chance to ever know what ketosis was. You know, I don't think since being a baby, I've probably not been in ketosis. And so it was just always getting in the way of that. And I don't think I was getting the right nutrients from our brain, you know, the heme iron we need to make neurotransmitters. The B12 is important, but you've got all the DHA and the EPA and the cholesterol. And that's basically what our brain loves. And so after 3 weeks, you know, of doing BBBE, I was getting a little bit more fat in. I was starting to feel a bit better. And on day 21, literally, I was out at work. I didn't have any breakfast. It was a beautiful day. And I realized I was smiling. And I wasn't like, I don't know, I didn't feel the weight of the world on me. I just felt light and free. And I had all this energy. And it was crazy. I couldn't help it. I just pulled over on the side of the road and just got my phone out and recorded my story, kind of thing, how I felt. It was just so unbelievable. I just wanted to share it. And at the time, I obviously didn't have a YouTube channel. I just had some other social media, put it up there, and everyone's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, that's really great. Really happy for you. But I ended up quitting all my social media because of just, I don't know. I think after a while of posting some videos and like they were happy for me, but they're kind of like, they don't really want to know. A lot of people after a while, they weren't reacting or liking or commenting. And
Right.
so I kind of just ditched all that and set up a YouTube channel. And then that's where I managed to reach more people. It seemed like a more meaningful endeavor, you know, and I've managed to put some videos together and I get all these lovely comments and emails and stuff like that. And so it's just, I'm glad it went that way, if anything, because I was wasting my time on other social media, and I've just not looked back. I live and advocate for this way of life now. And yeah, it's like my number one passion in life.
Yeah, that's interesting. I came to this very similarly. I saw Jordan Peterson on the Joe Rogan podcast, kind of like, wow, that's kind of crazy. And then
Yeah.
I think it was a few months after that he had Michaela on there, and she was talking about everything that you know, she had to go through, and her all the diseases it seemed to cure for her. I was pretty healthy. I was just really fat. My wife, on the other hand, she had a lot of GI issues as well. And you know, that as you're aware, when you have GI issues, they just keep on pushing more and more drugs on you.
Mm.
And so I was always on the lookout for anything I could find to get her off of those. So I went to her with like, hey, why don't we try this carnivore thing? And she didn't want to hear about it at first. She's like, nah, I don't know if we can do that. I was like, look, let's just try it for, you know, let's try it for 30 days, see how. And about 2 weeks in, you know, we had both stopped snoring already before we even really lost any weight. We were feeling better. For the most part, I actually had I had a bad bout with that keto flu, because we literally went from eating cake one night to
That's what we did. Yeah, that's what we did.
to carnivore the next day. But yeah, so then she's like, well, we can take it out to 60 days, and then, you know, 45 days. Well, let's go ahead and do 90. And then after 90 days, you're like, I'm not going back to that other way.
Yeah, that's
Like,
what,
it's just,
yeah.
it's hard for people, I think, to understand like how much better you feel. And I think for us, uh, I I have so many little ailments that
Mm.
have gone away that I even forgot they were there. So that's where my brother and I came to this idea of like, well, let's start documenting this because you just you forget about those things that went away that you're just, like my feet don't hurt anymore. I you had arthritis in my shoulder from my brother broke my collarbone when we were kids, just wrestling around the way
Yeah,
boys do. And in the last 5 years, it was starting to give me a lot of pain. But yeah, within a month that was gone.
yeah,
So
that's crazy. It's amazing. I always say it's funny because I forget to tell people this a lot of the time, but we actually wrote a list because we'd heard of all these different anecdotes before we did
mm,
it. We'd watched these videos all in like the day kind of thing, and then we were like, "Yeah, we're sold." Right. We actually wrote a list of everything we could think of that was bad, negative, like mentally and also physically. So acid reflux, and I had acne on my back. I had a little bit of sort of rosacea. Lucy snored, and all this kind of stuff, like you're saying, like any little niggles and stuff like that.
mm,
After 3 weeks went by, I could tick every single one of these things off, and there was a few things that didn't completely go, but they'd vastly
mm,
improved. And so, yeah, I encourage anybody who's going to try it, write a list, and if that doesn't compel you to carry on, you're pretty much asking just for all that stuff to come back. Hey,
right.
Rick.
Hey, sorry.
That's all good,
I'm
man.
uh, I'm a night shift worker, and
Yeah, yeah.
I typically don't sleep as late as I did, so I'm so sorry.
No, no, no worries. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we just got started about 10 minutes ago, Rick. So you just kind of went through his initial like what brought him to carnivore and that sort of thing. So really haven't even asked him a ton of questions yet. So
Okay. Um,
What's your favorite color?
what's that?
What's your favorite color?
Uh, I'm still trying to
Red.
like
Red.
blue.
The color of blood.
yeah.
Um,
So how is it? And you're what part of England are you in? Or the
I'm
what
in
part of the
Kent,
UK
so
you in?
that's yeah. So my name's Lee, obviously, but that's why I called myself Kent because I Kent Carnivore because I thought I was
Oh, right.
representing Kent, like being that maybe I was the only one. I didn't know anybody in
Mm,
person that was eating just meat and eggs and things like that. But turns out now with the YouTube channel, I get a lot of messages from people saying, "Oh, I use the same butcher as you," and like, "Oh, I'm 2 miles away from you," or like an hour trip. It's crazy. And so there's quite a lot of us about. But I thought I'd represent Kent. So it's basically just southeast of London, central London. If you get on the train,
okay.
25 minutes, you'll be in central London, kind of thing. So
Yeah. So, how is that in the UK? Because I know when so I was in London a little less than a year ago, about probably about 9 months ago. So I was only into carnivore, probably less than 90 days at a time.
mm,
And I remember, being out there for business and just going into restaurants. Like I just couldn't find a whole lot of carnivore options. I managed and I stayed true to the diet, but it was kind of difficult. So, is it harder there, you think, than maybe in the States or
I
especially
think,
eating out?
I think I'm going to have to take a guess at this because I haven't eaten out in this country once since going carnivore.
Okay.
I haven't even bought a single product from a supermarket since going carnivore. How about that? So,
Wow.
yeah, I only shop at butchers and farms, and that is it. I've got absolutely all my produce, my red meat, my eggs.
Mhm.
I think the only thing, so Lucy will go and do the shopping for us. The only thing that I have from a supermarket is water. That's it. That's the only thing that I have from a supermarket. I get everything else from these farms, and my salt, my butter, my tallow dripping, and the lamb, the beef. Occasionally, I have a bit of pork. I have some wild mackerel, a little bit of seafood. If they don't do mackerel, I might have some tiger prawns, and then have that with my steak and add some butter and stuff like that. But I haven't even eaten out once. But I did take a skiing trip in France, and I thought that was a better way to go about it because the French, they love their red meat. They have a lot of animal products, and I
Mhm.
went there and I managed to stay on track all the way through, except for one meal where they cooked it in seed oils. And I actually felt that straight away, like in my chest, I felt some weird kind of repeating sensation. But that didn't last
Mhm.
too long, thankfully, because I think it was just a one-off kind of thing. But I mean, if I reckon if I went out and I perhaps got on the phone first and said, "Well, look, this is my need. These are my diet needs, and perhaps I think you'd probably need to say allergy. If you say that word allergy, they could probably let you know whether they can cater for you, and just be like, "Well, I only eat red meat, but I can't, have anything cooked in seed oils. Can you cater for me?" they might say yes, and then it'll probably be okay. But beef is kind of expensive enough, and the prices that they charge, and I don't know. I just see the whole world differently now. I don't put my value in kind of going out to a bar or going to a restaurant. I'm quite happy to do my work and live this life, go to the butchers, support them, the farms, eat quality meat, feel good, and make some content and do that. That's my passion. That's my life. And they're pretty small circles in some ways, but I'm content,
Right. Nice.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Lee, and one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you was I saw your reaction video to the reaction video about you. These two little snot-nosed kids just, I mean, I it infuriated me watching that, and just how cruel and insensitive these guys were, and kind of one of the rules of life I try to live by is walk a mile in my shoes. I mean, these guys obviously did not know anything about you, your history, and then they just want to. I'm looking at the antlers in the background there. They went as far as to make fun of the way you decorate your house, and I just it was ludicrous and absurd the way these guys just kind of attacked you. To me, that's all it was an attack.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Do you have anything further to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, on this journey, I've come to learn multiple things, not just about the diet and what we should be eating and why, but I'm starting to realize that a lot of these, it's difficult. I can say vegans, but more specifically activists, these kind of activists, I think they do a lot of debates out, and a lot of the time, these guys, they don't care about health. They don't care about, and actually I'll go as far as to say they don't care about humans and human health. What they care about is their ideology and the clout that they get, the attention that they get, and they're all about the animals, right? That's it, and for the sake of human health as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's this new relationship that modern people seems to have. The relationship that we've developed with animals, it's actually really quite strange. We shouldn't really be looking at animals like, think about all the cartoons that kids watch. There'll be like some little lion teaching you something, how to do the ABC. It's like that lion will gobble you up. You know what I mean? It's like we have a funny relationship with these animals, and we've got the predators and we've got the prey. And we are not prey, we are not herbivores. We are the apex of all predators. Our eyes face forward. We've got huge brains. We are very, very smart. We've got means to hunt, and that's obviously what you guys you're passionate about, and I can understand that entirely. And what I understand as well from being on this journey, and I even without ever hunting myself, I can tell you 100% that I care about animals more than vegans do. I'm sure you have a more greater appreciation of animals because we know them. We appreciate why they're here. We understand how they tick and how they work. If you're going to track them, if you're going to eat them, you're so grateful that they gave their life so that it can give you life. And it's that kind of humble nature that we have as real humans. I think when you're a nerd, like you're really blue-pilled and you're this kind of woke young generation that's coming up now, you don't know what food is. I think that there's a lot of propaganda, and I understand, it's built around this fallacious belief that cholesterol is really bad. And then you've got the whole animal thing. And look, I think there's one argument that I would say that they have, and that is factory farming. And that I'm not for factory farming. I get my meat from proper butchers, proper farms. I support the ranchers. I'm not just going out to. And look, if you can't afford anything else, you're going to have to go to the store and buy some cheap ground beef and some eggs and stuff that come from perhaps factory farms. And I don't agree with those methods, but I'm advocating for a proper human diet. And from an agricultural perspective and farming perspective, we should be doing it the good old-fashioned way, regeneratively, where we give back to the land. It's this natural cycle. It's just been the natural way on planet Earth for like pretty much millennia. Like cows aren't new, but there were aurochs and stuff roaming and grazing hundreds of thousands of years ago. They're all over cave paintings. they didn't paint them there because they didn't care about animals. They were passionate. This is their food. This is what gives them life, and that's a beautiful thing. And some people might not understand that. But these guys often, they have cats and dogs, and they deprive them of their natural diet, which is cruel. Which is very hypocritical. Like, that's so like contradictory. But what they don't understand is that veganism itself doesn't exist. Number one, you can't have life without death, and vice versa. And regenerative farming gives back to everything. It's because also you've got to realize that if humans aren't sick, we're not taxing healthcare systems and the NHS and stuff like this with all, even global emissions in that sector. And if you look at the figures there and you work this stuff out, you can see quite clearly, you know, if we were just grazing ruminant animals on 2/3 of agricultural land where we can't grow crops, those animals can keep this balance in nature. And the methane is a natural a cycle, you know, a biogenic carbon cycle, and all of this stuff. It's none of it's bad. It's just all propaganda. And so there's a lot of fear mongering. There's a lot of just nonsense and propaganda. And these kids are actually victims. That's what I said actually in one of the comments. It's like, you've become the victim, and that's a mistake, because now you're a vegan. You are going down the path of becoming a victim yourself, you know, and you can get angry with me. You can hate the fact that I'm a human for some reason. I've cured my depression. That doesn't make you happy at all. You're going to just dismiss that straight away. And just attack, like you say, like how I've, you know, I actually made this look a little bit like a hunter's cabin in places, you know, and obviously in the video it was a little bit messy over here, but we did it like that before I even knew what the carnivore diet was. It's just kind of like that feel, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. It seemed to me like they might benefit from the carnivore diet because it might get rid of that,
For sure,
the anger and the hatred that they had. You know, it's I don't know. It just, I've seen some hateful people you know, and Doug and I, we even poke fun at veganism, but we don't really, you know, condemn anybody for their choices. It's just, I don't know. It just, I thought it was awful the way they behaved. And I've seen some other people, you know, kind of get all riled up about it. But man, those two took it to another level, and it was pitiful.
It's pretty strange. Yeah. I mean, you won't find me, for example. I'm sure you could probably say the same for yourselves. I bet that all three of us aren't in any vegan comment channels going, you're, you know, attacking them and calling them out. You know, I've made some videos with vegans, but I like to think it's positive stuff. I'm showing vegan transformations and I'm happy that they're with us, not because we're a cult, but because we are humans, and that this is the way that humans thrive. I'm happy you're thriving. I'm happy that you've addressed your health. I'm not worried about how many animals you had to eat that year. Most likely just a couple of cows, maybe, you know, maybe not even that. Like, and human life, that matters. So.
Yeah, I think what a lot of these animal rights activists miss is most of them are city dwellers to begin with, so they have no concept of what the wild is really like. My brother and I grew up hunting. We grew up in the mountains, and it's not what you see in the cartoons and then the movies and things like that. And what I think one thing that most people miss is that a shot from an ethical hunter is a best case scenario death for most of these animals. The wild world is a very violent place, and it's very brutal. And you know, an ethical hunter is going to try to take a deer or an elk or whatever down as quickly as possible, make sure they have as painless a death as possible. You know, mountain lions don't have that. They choke them out, and the death takes several minutes when they get caught by a mountain lion.
They know it's coming to them, right? Yep. I bet you when you've got it and you've got a kill shot, they don't even see it coming. They don't even hear anything. The next thing they know, they're just like staring at the sky, perhaps, and then it's like lights out, done. I mean, I can't think of a better way to go. I mean, sign me up for that, please. You know, I don't know. I mean, I've seen humans die in far worse ways where they're going to the toilet over themselves and their families have abandoned them and they don't even recognize their children's faces. That's a bad way to go. That's what you do when you eat carbohydrates all your life, you know, but that's far worse. And I honestly think a lot of these vegan activists, they're just really, really genuinely like misanthropic. They hate humans. They're anti-scientific and they're just woke, blue-pilled and a nerd. And for some reason, they just can't stand when humans turn their health around. using what we should use as real substrate that comes from red meat and venison and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so have you ever been to the United States?
I have, yeah, quite a bit. Not anywhere too close to where you guys are, I don't think. I'm trying to think where I've been close to you. I mean, I've been to Washington and New York. I've been Niagara Falls, both Canada and American side. I've touched on California a fair bit, you know, San Francisco. Yosemite Valley was really beautiful. Mammoth as well. Mammoth, some of the lakes there. Where else? Florida and Miami, New York Keys. Yeah, I've spent a fair amount of time in the States because my dad's priorities were always just taking us on these 2-week vacations. And so we would go to the States. And I remember just as a kid, we'd get this big old family vehicle because the vehicles back then even were really big. And over here, they were already quite small. So it was really interesting. I used to go over there and be like, wow, it's so crazy here, you know, big old highways and the big cars. Yeah, got a lot of good memories there. But you're in Colorado. I'm trying to think where is close. Is it Washington?
Probably closest to California.
Oh, is it?
For the places that, we're still...
We're kind of in the Rocky Mountains,
Mountain West,
into the plains. They call it Midwest here, so
okay,
or Mountain West. Sorry,
my geography's not the best. It looks almost like Spirit Island in the background you got there. I've been there. That's Canada, obviously. I've got a picture behind me similar, like with the little island with the trees.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, my wife actually took this picture on one of our ATV trips. She does a bit of. She actually used to do professional photography. Now she just kind of does it for fun because she didn't like. What's that?
That's a dream job. I can't think of many jobs that's, you know, if you've got just a nice piece of equipment and you can go and travel and just take pictures of beautiful places. I can't think of many jobs that beat that.
Yeah, well, she was doing what her, like, on the professional side was more like weddings and family portraits and things like that. So yeah, now she just does the landscape photography just for her own pleasure.
Yeah. Nice.
But doing photos for groups there, she was just getting tired of everybody, you know, get 1,000 pictures taken today and they want them delivered next week, and it's like, well, that's there's some retouching and stuff that you're gonna if you're do you want to really like your pictures, or do you want them to be do you want them fast?
Yeah.
So
how do you cook your meat? How do you like it cooked?
I go through phases, honestly. I actually use mostly a cast iron pan now. I usually have like ribeyes and sirloins. I'll stick that in a cast iron pan, and I like it nice and rare, like blue in the middle, you know. I do prefer it cooked, but I also eat some raw. I eat raw bits and pieces here and there. I just made a video about that actually, just to address that, because I don't know if you've noticed people in comments and that saying that raw is the way to go, and if you're not eating raw, you're not a real carnivore and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to address that. You know, I think anyone that adopts a meat-centric diet, all more power to you. You know, whether that's raw or cooked, I think whatever works, that's great. I'm just all for people eating more meat and get rid of the crap, the junk, but just all carbohydrates really. I do things like short rib and oxtail in the slow cooker because they're really tough pieces of meat. But I'll eat some mackerel raw. I eat mackerel raw. I eat a little bit of Iberica pork, and which is really quite nice. That they're fed exclusively acorn, so it's got that lovely marbling. And it's like butter when you cook that. It's just like melts in your mouth. It's crazy. Yeah, really nice. So I don't seem to react to that pork like I would normal pork. I don't really touch pork or chicken too often. Probably eaten chicken maybe 3 times on the carnivore diet in like 19 months, when I used to eat it like most days of the week. You know, it'd be like grains and chicken, some vegetable. Now it's like I don't even really eat chicken anymore. So it's mostly meat, you know. Yeah. How about you guys?
Same. When we first started, my wife and I, we went out, we bought a bunch of pork and a bunch of chicken and a bunch of beef as well, you know, in addition to the wild game that I'd have in the freezer. But it didn't take us very long to realize that most of the pork and basically all the chicken that we bought was just way too lean. Like it just wasn't satiating anymore. And if you're not getting that giant pile of rice next to that chicken,
it's true,
you know, you don't feel as well as you do on just, you know, good old fashioned red meat.
Yeah. What's your favorite fats? What about you? Sorry, Rick, go on you.
Oh yeah, I do mine medium rare as well. and sometimes less than medium rare. So
Yeah. That's good. I think it's the healthiest way to go, because you're liberating certain nutrients when you cook it, but you're also not destroying the nutrients when you cook it all the way through. Do you know what I mean? That's my opinion. I know there's some sort of nuanced opinions and takes on that, but
yeah.
So are you able to do dairy at all, or do you need to stay away from dairy?
I mean, I don't notice huge differences. So the only thing is I wasn't really a big guy when I started the diet, and because at first I struggled to get enough fat in, I did lose a fair amount of weight. I actually looked like I was getting a bit ill, if anything, if I'm being totally honest. It wasn't until 3 weeks when everything started to turn around, I felt amazing, but I was still on the lean side, and I was struggling. I thought, well, look, I'll get in the cheese, just start there, because at least there's almost little lactose in there, almost none. And so I thought, well, I'll add some cheese to the mix and see how that goes. And that didn't really seem to affect me too much. But I wasn't really gaining weight. I couldn't eat loads and loads. I think I just wasn't adapted to fat properly at the time, even though I felt great because I was in ketosis and I was nutrifying myself better, but I just wasn't adapted to eating enough fat like I was probably meant to. I think that just takes time. So up until that point, I did then even try some raw milk to gain the weight, and that certainly helps you gain weight. I just had to be mindful of the carb content and not drink too much of it, because it can be quite moreish. I've got lovely fresh, raw, organic. It's all like Jersey cows as well. I mean, it's incredible. The taste of it's just delicious. So it's very difficult to moderate. And so, I was trying to keep it under 2 glasses, and that was a little bit tricky. But to be honest with you, I've got up to weight now, and now I can eat a fair amount of food, even in one sitting. So I don't need the dairy. And actually, as much as I enjoy the dairy, I feel better without it. So it's a similar situation with carbohydrates. You know what I mean? As much as I may have craved sugar in the past, it's like if I just deny myself the sugar, I actually feel happier. I feel better. I'm stronger. My mind, my brain, everything's clearer. So it doesn't really affect me too much, other than the fact that it's difficult to moderate.
Does England have any kind of laws against raw milk? Or is it pretty freely marketed there?
There are some laws, actually. You won't find any raw milk in a chain supermarket or any kind of large outlet. You have to go directly to a dairy farm and purchase it. So to me, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know that myself. But obviously, understanding the difference, that it was a no-brainer. A few miles down the road from here in Braisted, you got Park Farm, and these guys, the cows are out grazing all the way through the year. If the weather gets a little bit crappy and they have to bring them in, they're just eating like hay, so it's still basically grass. It's their natural diet, really. But you have to purchase it at the farm itself. But they've got a nice convenient little machine. It's like a vending machine. It's got raw and pasteurized, and you put your little coins in there. You've got a cash machine that turns it into coin. You could even use your card, and then you just hit the amount you want, press raw, and put your glass. You can take glasses or whatever you want and fill up. And some people travel quite. So some of the I don't know whether it's to do with their religion, but quite a lot of Indian folk, they drive down from London, and I always see them there at the farm, and they're stocking up big time. I think they put it in the freezer and stuff like that. But it is particularly nice. Apparently, the Jersey ones, there's no comparison apparently, because these guys are driving miles and miles just to get this stuff. Yeah,
that's cool, because even here in this, I have some dairy farmers that live fairly close to me, some friends of ours, and I asked them for a video that Doug and I wanted to do to make oyster stew, and they wouldn't even give it to me for free, or they wouldn't even let me buy it, give it to me for free, or not, because if they get caught, then apparently the government can shut them down or something. It's a little bit of overreach, I think.
Have a secret camera on you or something.
Yeah, and I would never.
In Colorado, you literally, in order to drink raw milk, or you basically have it in your possession, you literally have to own the cow.
Right.
So there are some dairy farmers around, like where I live, where I could go and buy a cow share, and for like $20 a week, I could get 1 gallon of milk a week. And I'm just like, that's a lot for a gallon of milk.
Yeah. I would say, if anything, you're better off. Like, certainly if you want to lose weight as well. I mean, to me, if you think about what milk is, I don't really advocate it much on my channel, because it's mostly for mammals when they're trying to grow and they're having growth spurts as a baby. Now we're drinking like cow's milk. It's not that normal, really. It's kind of unusual. I mean, it tastes delicious, but I think that's just our innate craving for sugar. You know, when it was present, when we could come across it, we would have consumed it. But really, you know, it's available all year round now. And so I think it's best to kind of stay away from sugar, even the sugar in milk. And there are some problems with milk as well, even the raw stuff, you know. If you've got autoimmune diseases, I think a lot of people will struggle with the casein protein and different things like that. But again, if you can't moderate it, you can come out of ketosis. And I don't think that that's a great idea. You know, I think for me, that may mean that my depression comes back. I don't really know. That's something that I was a bit worried about, honestly, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. I can imagine. That's you definitely have more motivation than the average person to stay strict.
Yeah. Yeah, that is my motivation, you know, and it's easy. All the time you've got a reason to, it's easy. But to be honest with you, I don't even really get cravings. I don't know about you guys. I don't really think about the stuff I used to think about. I mean, I used to have orange juice after every single meal. It was crazy. But I don't even think about that stuff anymore. And when I look at someone drinking this glass of orange, I'm like, what is that? You know, so it's like I've been reborn. So I just have a totally different perspective on things.
I'd say the only cravings I ever really get is for the foods that I used to really love and crave and really had a taste for. But it's easier also at the same time for me to walk away and say, nah, I don't need that bag of Cheetos.
Yeah. And do you think it's probably easier to like not have any than just to have a little bit? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if you have a little bit, it's kind of like, oh man, I want more. But if you just say, oh, that would be nice, but no, I'm all right. You know what I mean? And then it's gone. It's not a problem. But I think to me, I'm an abstainer, not a moderator. So I kind of just have to go all in and not look back. But I mean,
same.
I feel far better now.
And I'll say for me, and actually Rick and I have talked about this before, but those instances where we have kind of gone off, usually because of like a big family function or something, and there just wasn't a lot of carnivore options available to us, at least not enough to get us filled up. There's this weird like carb hangover the next day. It feels like you had too much alcohol.
Yeah.
Where it just you wake up the next morning and all of a sudden you have that head fog again that you haven't had in months, and it's definitely not just not worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I actually said to my partner, even if we went, for example, to Italy, and I had to get up early in the morning, go get on a plane, arrive there, check in, you spend one night there, maybe another day and a night, and then you come home, I reckon I'd just fast, because it's like you say, it's not worth it. I touched seed oils accidentally, and I didn't feel good. I don't want to consume carbs if they can't cater for me. For example, if they couldn't cater for me, I'd just fast, because I did a 5-day fast a little while ago. I've never even thought I could do that, and I don't even have a colon, but I can because I'm fat adapted. So because my body's used to fat coming in as fuel, if it doesn't get any fat, it's like, well, I've got fat on my organs, probably, like maybe a little bit. I've got fat on my body, so I'm never really like desperate for food like I was when I was a carb fiend. I'd feel like I was going to die if I went 12 hours without food. Where now, just to sit a day out and not eat, it's not really a problem. I'm probably going to prefer to eat. I think, it'd be nice to have a decent steak. But if I know there's no other options, it's not a problem for me to fast. So that's probably what I would do in that situation personally, if it was just like 2 or 3 days or something.
Yeah. Well, ours was more like 9 days. So we would always have, when we do these ATV trips, it's one of those scenarios where each couple, supplies 2 dinners. So when Rick was cooking or when I was cooking, when it was our turn, we definitely made sure there was enough meat for us plus everybody else, whatever they would do. But yeah, you go about 9 days. But again, we didn't have the severe medical issues either, so we can kind of do that every once in a while. I prefer not to still, but it's kind of hard to ask somebody who's not on the carnivore diet, make sure I have at least a pound and a third of meat for dinner.
Yeah. That's when you say it like that to just an average person, they're kind of like, what? What? That's crazy. They can't get their head around that you eat that much meat. I mean, I'm not a big guy. I'm only 5'6", and they're amazed that I've come back like the next day for more meat. They're like, wait a minute, what did you do with all that meat? They're like, you didn't eat it. So yeah, that was my one meal. Yeah. So I'm back,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, this guy eats a lot of red meat.
So,
Yeah.
so you do OMAD?
Pretty much, yeah. I would say like once a week, perhaps I'd have 2 meals, but I can't, when I do that second meal, say, for example, I have a breakfast that I don't usually have breakfast. So say every 6 days I'll have, 8 days, maybe a breakfast. I never really eat that much. So it's interesting. It's almost like I kind of want something. So I don't beat myself up. I'm like, well, if I'm hungry, I'll eat, but I never manage to eat that much. I always eat a lot in the afternoon, usually about 4:30 to 5. And I quite like to always be done by 6 p.m. because then it doesn't really affect my sleep at all. So yeah, usually about a kilo of red meat in best case scenario. If I haven't got a kilo of red meat, then I eat some eggs and butter and stuff like that, just to bring up the mass of food that takes me to satiety, basically.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you next how much you ate. So
right, yeah. I mean, yeah, about a kilo. That's pretty much my limit. If I just have red meat, kilo cooked in fat, and pour the fat on and gobble that up, that's basically my limit. I mean, when I was starting the diet, I don't know what I was eating. I think maybe I was eating more because I was eating like 2 or 3 meals. In the beginning, I was having like bacon and eggs. Then lunchtime would come, and I'd have like sardines and boiled eggs. And then like dinner would come, and I'd probably have like a couple of small ribeyes or something like that, cheaper ones. So maybe that's more, than a kilo of red meat. But it's funny how now I've got my weight up, and I can just maintain a healthy weight just by eating that same one meal every day, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd pretty much eat the same thing. I'll have bacon and eggs in the when I first wake up or before I go to work, being a night shift worker, and then I'll have I'll try to have a steak after that. Sometimes I get last night at work I didn't eat at all. I just got too busy.
Yeah. And how did that feel? Do you feel like you go past it, it's all good,
Oh yeah, toward the closer I got to bedtime, my stomach would start to grumble a little bit. But I'm like, yeah,
I think it's not a bad thing. I think that's pretty normal. Like we wouldn't have. No one's like that great of a hunter, even when we were at our peak of hunting, that we could eat just whenever we wanted. And I think that there were definitely natural periods of time where it's quite healthy, perhaps, to have a feeling of hunger and just to not eat. Not that we should be forcing that on us regularly, but I think every now and again, I think it's probably good.
Yeah. In fact,
I've been integrating a couple of fasting days, usually midweek, just because you're right. There was that. I think that's just was a normal part of the human experience. So you go, if you didn't get anything that day, you don't eat. So, and it actually, the first day you kind of feel a little bit hungry if you're doing like, I'll usually go like 50 hours on the weeks where I do that, 50, 52 hours. And the second day, you don't even think about it. Second day into the start of the third, it's just my focus at work gets a lot better. And it's just, okay, this is just normal.
I did a day of dry fasting. That was it. I planned to do like 2 or 3. Man, that was quite intense, because I think when I fasted before, I'd eaten, like really primed myself for a fast, and I'm stuffed. And then by the time 24 hours goes by, you're barely ready to eat anyway, and you're drinking water like with salt and stuff like that. So you got your electrolytes and things. But to dry fast, I managed a day, and then the next day I'm like, right, I'm breaking it. I'm not doing it anymore. That was intense. Yeah. Really, really like kicks in quick.
Yeah. So what advice would you give people thinking about starting on carnivore?
I would say, if you can, transition slowly. I mean, if it's the case of, well, I have to jump all in straight away cold turkey, or I'm not doing it, then so be it. I do believe that you will come out okay on the other side. I think that you need to take it slow for different reasons with fat. I think you want to always test your limit, because fat's really important, but you're probably not going to be able to just go, right, no more carbohydrates, all this fat the very next day. And if that's the case, you might have a little bit faster output, which means the fat's going straight through you, you're not being able to utilize it. And so that's your gauge with how much fat to eat. But just, I would, like I was talking to Doug earlier, I would say I would write a list of all of your problems. If you just wrote a list of all of your problems, mental and physical, and in a sense that gives you a purpose, that gives you reason to do it and to aim for something. And I think it's really important to have an aim. If you're just doing it blind, pointlessly for no reason, it's going to be difficult perhaps. But if you've got some ailments, they may be chronic, they may be pretty mild, write a whole list and do it as an experiment. Just set yourself 30 days, but maybe more ideally 6 weeks. Transition slowly if you can, weaning off of carbohydrates, increase fat, start to replace things like grains with eggs and bacon in the morning, and your sandwiches for maybe, like I said, sardines and eggs, but mostly focus on ruminant animals. Buy what you can afford, and time will come. You can get more fat in, and you can play around with 2 meals a day, OMAD, and see what works for you best. But I would say give it 30 days to 6 weeks before you look at this list again, and then see how many of these problems you can tick off, because I've managed to tick everything off. So many other people with their ailments, it's like little niggles you didn't even know you had, or you weren't even thinking about. It's like, oh, wow, that's gone. You could even add it to the list and go, well, that's gone. I didn't even think about that. That's it, really. I think the important thing is to, if you're interested in your health, and most likely you should be, it's about feeling good. It's about living a proper life as a human and understanding what that feels like. I think that should be enough incentive. But if you care about your health, then understand the importance of eating in line and in keeping with genetics. We've been eating this stuff since day one. Everything that people consume multiple times a day these days is pretty much brand new, and so that's why so many people get sick. I think if you've got children, it's even more important. That's another reason. You're setting them up for life. They could be super robust, really, really smart. Their brain's going to work great, and depending on what they want to do, it's going to serve them no matter what. Whether they want to be an athlete or whether they want to be a scientist. If you get them on a carnivore diet, man, there's no stopping them. So,
yeah, you mentioned you might discover some things you didn't even know you fixed by that. I just made a short recently. I have these lipomas, and I don't know if you can see this one,
right?
But my sister had mentioned that. Hey, that lump on your arm is getting small. and I thought, I felt it. And I'm like, man, I think you're right. And I used to have one in the middle of my chest here that's no longer there. And I used to have a bunch in my belly area. And so I'm fixing stuff I didn't even think about being on this carnivore diet.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's amazing.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy wonderful. So.
Yeah. And I think that's another reason as well, because some people don't think they have enough reason, but you almost don't know because you haven't transformed. And then you would never go back. Like if you could feel just more optimal, even though you may think that you don't have any issues, if you go carnivore for like 6 weeks and now just go straight back to eating grains 3 times a day, cooked in seed oils, and add all the crap to that and have a dessert after dinner time, man, I think at the end of that day, you're going to be like, oh, wow, I didn't know I suffered so much, So a lot of these people, they're just, again, it's inertia. They're used to this unpleasant reality and they don't know it. Again, it's kind of very much like the Matrix a lot of the time. Some of these people don't know it, but you're not feeling right. You should feel a lot better than you do. And so even just for curiosity, perhaps just set yourself a challenge. What have you got to lose?
Yeah.
Yeah, another one that happened for both Rick and I, we inherited a condition from our mother called familial tremors, which is just a constant kind of shaking.
Yeah, I've got that too. I'm dead steady as a rock now. I used to be like
that.
I used to be like that on I don't drink coffee, but I used to be like that on caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
But I drank coffee and my BBBE, and I was like this. I was like, wait, it's not the caffeine, it's the carbohydrates. Yeah, that's so strange you said that.
Yeah, because all of our doctors said, "Oh, you know what? It's hereditary. You can't get rid of it. You're just going to live with it forever." And then one day, it was actually I had filled up coffee a little bit too, because I used to be really careful to not get my coffee right up to the rim because I'd spill it everywhere. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm not shaking anymore."
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, that's true. I'm like that all the time. Super. I just think it's blood glucose and stuff like that. It must be. I mean,
it must be.
Yeah.
To me, familiar tremors at this point it's either we were misdiagnosed or it's a phantom disease. It doesn't really exist. It's something doctors don't understand or something.
Yeah. They think it's normal because normal people consume carbohydrates all day, where we shouldn't be consuming enough carbohydrates all the time, all year round to kick us out of ketosis. Like, we would be predominantly in ketosis. We'd probably come out when we eat berries and honey, when we stumble across it. But if you think that honey and berries are available all year round, like, that just means you don't know how the world works, how nature works. You're just withdrawn, living in this modern world. You go to the store, there's not just honey and berries, but there's fruit juice, and there's every fruit from every country, and they're all bigger and more colorful. And we're supposed to make a puree out of that. It's crazy. Like that. That's just not, it's not healthy. And that's why we all tremor and we have all that stuff. Yeah. That's one of the things that I didn't even realize until months down the line. I was like, wait, this is kind of weird. Like, I don't ever shake anymore. And so I think it's carbohydrates.
Yeah. And I think that's where I would be open, once I've met all like my weight loss goals and everything, I would be open to having some fruits and stuff again. But it's for me, it's gonna be local fruit that's in season.
Yes.
And only during that time, because I mean, if you think about it, when is fruit in season? At the end of the summer, early fall. And so it would make sense for us as an animal to go and get that fruit and get that sugar, spike our insulin, so we add a little bit of fat to the body to get us through a long winter.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. And it would have been advantageous because winter's coming, but in the modern world, it never comes. And so it's like the body thinks that we're in some other country at the end of summer all the time, and that's the same thing with lights. Really, I try and dim the lights, and when the sun's down, you don't want I know you obviously work night shifts, so we don't want to hear it, but yeah, I mean, that's another thing. If you could switch and have get up with the sun and go down with the sun and dim the lights, and there's all these different products. I should probably look into it, just to maximize health and stuff like that. But there's like hats and glasses you can wear to block out blue light and EMFs and all stuff like that. And you can ground your sleep in your mattress, and you can DIY it yourself. Just plug in something into the earth and start traveling up into the bed or something, and ground when you sleep, because that's what we would have done. We would have been grounding when we slept and when we woke up, and the eyes are stimulated with the light, and then all our hormones function correctly at the right times. But yeah, it's tricky, isn't it, these days in the modern world? It's just everything is so far removed from natural that everything's toxic. Our water's got all these plastics, the rain, and you've got estrogens in all of the packages. It's pretty scary, honestly. And so, yeah, again, like with the children and that, it's like more reason to put them on a carnivore diet for sure. There's enough toxic stuff coming in from other places, let alone diet.
Yeah.
So where do you get your information? Because watching your videos, it's very clear you're very well educated on all this stuff. Have you watched enough of the other doctors' videos? Are you reading some of these studies yourself, or
a combination? So I mean, I started on my journey just watching videos. That's what inspired me. I started to notice things, and then I was like, that's interesting. So I went down certain rabbit holes about why I'm not burning, and it's just kind of obvious. You just start to learn I almost feel like just that basic foundation of knowledge that most of our subscribers probably know, where we're all on the same journey and we're all soaking up a lot of the same common knowledge. And so I think we all naturally build that foundation from watching people like Kenny Berry, Bart Kay, Anthony Chafee, Sean Baker. I also like Paul Mason. You've got George Eade and the Low Carb Down Under channel. I watch a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I like those guys.
Yeah, they're really cool, and they're really clear. I think that they do a great job getting the word out. Again, they do a lot of debunking of old studies, and that woke me up quite a bit. The history with Ansel Keys, and you've got the different people, Seven-Day Adventist and all that sort of thing, and Harvey Kellogg, Ansel Keys. This basic history and foundation of why it is that we've been sort of lied to, and these common fallacies and stuff like that. I actually don't do that much reading or anything like that, but occasionally, if you watch say a Kenny Berry video, for example, they're talking about this nonsense, with protein causes diabetes and all this kind of stuff. They'll often link an article or a study, and sometimes I'll click on that and have a look. And the funny thing is the way I build a lot of my videos and my content, I learned so much in the process of making a video that's kind of, it's like a learning experience as well as, do you know what I mean? Because I don't know, obviously, everything. I'm a window cleaner. I'm not a scientist or a doctor or a professional in any of this kind of area, really. But I feel like I learn a lot just by making a video. So I'll think of a particular facet of carnivore. Okay, cool. Just say, for example, fructose and why it's bad. and then I haven't actually done this, but so then you start watching all these videos, and I think you can tell, you know, what's right and what's wrong and what's propaganda and what isn't, and certainly by the people that are making the videos and getting the word out there. So I compile these different clips together, and during the making of these videos, it seems to just go in, and that's where I get a lot of my knowledge. So a lot of it is from YouTube. I know, I understand people think that it's a lot of gurus just talking a load of nonsense, but these guys, they used to be proper doctors, and they've now come out of this system that's corrupt to help people. They're genuine people. They have all these good intentions. They're not propagandists. They're not lying to you. They can earn more money lying to you, and they stop doing that. And so you only have to click on and look at the studies below. And if you watch a lot of Bart K, you know when things are nonsense and when it's not, how to look at study and different things like that. And so, yeah, I think we all gain this kind of information and this knowledge through just going on our journey. You know, our anecdotes as well offer some degree of truth and knowledge, because I think, you know, when enough people say they stop shaking and enough people say, like, my arthritis is gone or I don't snore anymore, you can start to question and understand why. And the more knowledge you have, you start to piece all these things together, and you can almost come up with potential reasons yourself why that might happen. You know what I mean? You're almost diagnosing these conditions and why they're not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think there's enough anecdotal evidence out there to, I mean, and I think Dr. Baker's working on that to get some studies put together so we can start to understand this lifestyle better. Or actually, in this case, I will call it a diet because so many people are getting positive results from this. I mean, thousands, and it's enough that I think there's enough anecdotal evidence to prove that there's something to this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And my thing is, so the way I feel about it is, worst case scenario, all of these vegetarians are right, and we're all going to die of a heart attack young. If that's the price for having more energy to run around and play with my grandson today, that's kind of worth it. And I don't think that's the case. I have a hard time believing that any diet that makes me feel this good on a day-to-day basis is going to kill me early. But worst case scenario, if I'm wrong, at least I live a fuller life now, because I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of not living. If that makes sense. Like, I don't want to be, I don't want to be in a care facility because I have such bad dementia that I can't be trusted to be out on my own. That to me is more scary than death.
I agree. I think it's actually easy to survive in some ways. Again, like these people that are sort of stuck in the matrix, they're not ready to be unplugged, because it's easier just to survive and exist. But to live is actually hard, but worth it. It's like, it's the adventure of your life, you know, to try and live. There's something to that, and this is a big part of it. How can you really live a proper life if you're not eating proper food? So, definitely.
Yeah. Well, do you have any parting words for us? Like, any words of wisdom you want to share?
Everything in a plant serves the plant. It doesn't serve us, you know. I think unless every now and again you come across some kind of ingredient that you can apply topically to your skin and that seems to work or whatever. I think that plants have their uses, but they're more like remedies and topical treatments. They serve the plant. Nothing in the plant really serves us. The nutrients are in the wrong form. You get, you know, high fats coming from the wrong fats and too much fiber, which is my old enemy. And so red meat is king. That's what I always say.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I saw one of your other videos. Your new surgery got pushed back.
Yes, that was actually supposed to be for the 13th, this Wednesday coming. That's now for the 24th. So it's just a mess with the NHS for obvious reasons. You know, I don't know what I can't say really. Things that people have been given, and also the strikes and all this, the mess with the diet and the pharmaceuticals. Everybody's sick, and so it's Ramo in there. It's a nightmare being seen, and it's been on the cards for a long time. And hopefully this time it will go ahead on the 24th. It's just something I'm still dealing with what plants did to me, essentially. You know, I'm pretty sure people, even the vegans and the vegetarians, can see if they tune in for whatever reason that this isn't something to do with carnivore. It's like a follow-up surgery to finalize the ileostomy surgery I had over 7 years ago. So
Right.
it's a bit grim. It's a bit grim, but it's something that has to be addressed. And I've got a better attitude. I'm obviously healthier going into it, and I'm still pretty young, so I'm okay. I'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it almost makes me wonder, like, had you found this earlier, if you would have been able to avoid the first surgery. Because that's what I'm hoping for my wife, and she is off all of the medications that she had for her GI issues. So
yeah, I believe so. I think that you'll be fine, even if she just ate some local seasonal stuff. If she absolutely had to, if it's local and it's seasonal, that's probably okay. Just moderate, but definitely red meat on the plate if you can every day. Lots of fat. Eat when you're hungry. Stop when you're full. Drink water. That's it. I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, no doubt.
Awesome.
All right. Well, sorry I was late.
No worries.
Yeah. And man, I hope hopefully we can do this with you again someday. And who knows, maybe you can make it to the Rocky Mountains, or we'll head out your way
or something.
Yeah. Man, I would love that. Yeah, for sure. I wish there's nothing like that really around here. I don't even know what people do. I mean, there are hunters, but it's not like it is where you are. I'm not sure, but yeah, for sure. I would love that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, man. Well, again, thanks for taking this time for us. I know it's a lot later for you than it is for us.
It's all good. It's a good weekend, so it's just hit 9 o'clock, so it's not too late. I usually go to bed at around 10:30.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and let's do this again sometime.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
for sure.
Nice.
All right. Take it easy.